Death from Above. Now, I've been looking through my Battletech playlist here, the archive, up on my channel, and I don't think we've explored Death from Above. Let's push it up. Let's open up this discussion and really ask the question, is this a valid tactica? Now, I have to step back for a moment in that as your mech commander, I want to give you the best information. I want to give you the tactica. You've just inherited that mech. You're going out into the field of combat and glory for the first time. I want you to survive. I want you to win. In that narrative, I want to cut down your learning curve. And in doing that and in sharing my ideas and what I've learned on the tabletop, and of course, getting amazing feedback from you guys in the Battletech community, only increasing my game, there is a fine line, or it's actually a very visible line with me, solid tactica versus tabletop glory. There are things that I do in non-competitive games that are a little bit crazy, a little bit out there. I want us to sit down and have an awesome Battletech memory. I want to remember this game, this experience with you literal years into the future. So if there is a chance for glory, if there's a chance to charge, if there's a chance to take the table, if there's a chance to do something absolutely crazy, I don't know. Maybe we'll do it. Never tell me the odds. Death from Above is one of those things that not only does everything have to align perfectly, so right away the tactica, of course, is can you align things perfectly, or do you just be on the lookout for the opportunity? And then you have to pull it off. And even in pulling it off, there's going to be consequences. So let's jump in. Battletech does kind of three things with the rule set. And when I say rule set, we've got kind of the core intro basic rules in the box set, Game of Armored Combat. We've got Total Warfare. We've got various supplements. We've got Combined Arms. Battletech can be pretty straightforward, or you can layer on rules and have it be a lot more complex. And there's no right or wrong way to play Battletech. But what you see, kind of framing Death from Above here, what you see, they capture in the rules the narrative, the fact that these are giant mechs and what they're special at. So we see this with like torso twisting, taking advantage of the tech. We see this with the rules with PPCs and LRMs, different minimums and different ranges. You might think it's kind of out there, or tactically you say, look, a PPC isn't worth it because of minimums and this and that. But understanding the tech, what they're trying to do is say, hey, here's the in-game universe. Here's how it maps out on the dice and hex maps. So you have those aspects of the rules. Then you have a part of the rules where you kind of wonder, did they include it because someone was going to try and do it based on the tech, based on what's possible, based on the narrative? Possibly. And I feel like that's where Death from Above comes in. The rules capture the desperation, or I should say the glory of it, and I think it does a good job, but there are a lot of what-ifs. Okay, New Mech Warriors, what is Death from Above? You activate jump jets. You take off into the air, into the sky, and you come crashing down. You land on your opponent's mech, crushing it into the ground. Literally death from above. And the tactica of Death from Above, the damage multipliers, are the fact that it's the tonnage of the mech taken at a third tier, taken at a much higher level than punching and kicking, and it is applied to the punching table because, like, literally you're coming down and drop kicking and smashing into this mech. So there are tremendous, tremendous consequences in receiving this. Very powerful. Then, of course, we see if both mechs fall down, and you have to make various checks, and it quickly devolves from there. So the question is, why do Death from Above? Then we'll look at how to do Death from Above. Then we'll take on some considerations. I won't say build a list around this, absolutely not. But if you're going to do this, why certain machines are better than others, and should you actively plan for the tactica? And I'll share my thoughts on that. Or is it something you look for? So the tactica here with Death from Above is the fact that it magnifies extreme damage and ports it over to the punch table. There's a chance to destroy the head. There's a chance to damage part of the torsos, left and right, kind of cut into that. And it's very, very effective, especially with lighter machines. Now, look, there are some heavies that you can do death from above, and it's just going to be catastrophic. But the force multiplier of even a light mech is something to consider. The force multiplier of a medium mech is even more. So the first thing, of course, jump capability. You have to be able to make it up there. So that's the first kind of classification of the mechs. The next thing that is important is the idea of movement and initiative. Your opponent has to stop their movement in a hex. So you can't, let's say we have two opposing mechs. We're going to keep it really, really simple. I move my mech a few hexes. You move your mech with initiative. I can't declare death from above. It has to be on the opposite. You have to move your mech, and then where it ends, then I have to declare death from above. So the idea is you're in a certain spot. I'm aware of that. As a mech warrior, I'm going to focus and I'm going to move in just on that one piece. So the first thing we see in the tactica of even being able to do it is initiative, ending up in that space. We should say first or second, but also in there, do you have the jump capability to make it into that, to power off and leap up and move? The next aspect is it comes later in the phase, similar to physical attacks. So when you declare death from above, you're literally taking off with your jump jets and declaring that. Your opponent has a chance to shoot you out of the sky. Your opponent has a chance to potentially stop that, to hit you with enough to stop it. It is a what if. I've seen it very rarely, but usually if you're throttling death from above, you're going in with death from above, unless your mech is so totally messed up, which is a possibility, right? Both arms blown off, fusion engine leaking, just anything hits you at that point, you're just going to explode. That's a possibility. There's also a possibility and a reason why to do death from above. Okay, that lands up. You're flying through the sky. Now you got to see if you hit. There's a couple of checks to see if you land. If you miss, you're going to fall on the ground. There's more tests. Not only are you taking damage, but you could fall down. If you hit, then the damage is applied to the mech. Then both of you need to check and see what's happening. There's there's an absolute chance that hit or miss, your mech is going to take damage to the legs, depending on the mech. It could cause some problems. It could shear off your legs. It could even immobilize your mech. So what we see here is something that's very risky, but a ton of fun and very opportunistic. Okay, jumping into the tactica. I mean, I've never built a list. I mean, you could build a list for anything. I've got my Urban Lance AC-20 strike list, which is essentially all demolishers and a jacked up Urban Mech AC-20, the 6M variant. I've played all tank lists. I've played a lot of different lists in Battletech. I've never built anything specifically for death from above. You could. I see it more as something that presents an opportunity. And that opportunity comes in two flavors. The first, of course, is for the lulls, meaning like, I have to do this. This is tabletop glory. You just put your command mech, your Marauder command mech into the fray. I can do death from above and potentially not only take it out, but the cred, the rep as a mercenary for doing that, for drop kicking your command mech, you can't put that on the table and not expect me to go for it, right? So sometimes it's for that. Other times it is tactically viable where if you put the lulls aside and if we just approach this look as a mech commander, when do you do this? If your mech is going to go down in a turn or two, and you never really know. I mean, that's the interesting thing about Battletech. Sometimes you explode right away on a lucky hit. Other times it's just absolute craziness. On a side note, I was playing a dragon on a recon mission, and Davian forces were hidden. We were using the hidden rules. And I've got my spider. I've got my spider mech kind of reconning. I've got some warriors reconning. I think I know where the Davians are. So I start moving up with the dragon and some other mechs, and there's this little forest. And like 5 mechs suddenly appear right there. The whole Davian strike force is like just in this forest. How they fit, we don't even know, right? It's Battletech. It was abstract. They engage the dragon. And I couldn't pull back with the dragon. It's not going to happen. So I'm like, okay, look, we're at short range. I've got the dragon weapons. Let's do it. This mech, there was no repairing this mech. I mean, it's going to go in a museum for, House Karita glory. Arms blown off, leg almost blown off, fusion hit, gyro hit, no weapons, head damage, like literally just a couple of armor bubbles from just completely internally collapsing on itself. It survived the whole game. And my opponent's like, I just got to blow this thing up. This is crazy. It's just taking massive amounts of damage. So sometimes in Battletech, that happens, where both you and your opponent pause for a second and you're like, wait, what just happened there? What are we looking at? But what you see generally is usually your mechs take a lot of punishment, a lot of damage, and you kind of crunch the numbers and you say, okay, I'm really going to be up for another turn or two. And this is assuming you're not playing with force withdrawal rules. At that point, if you can do death from above, why not? I mean, picture a mech, arms blown off, weapons down, heat sinks down, maybe you've got an engine hit, and you're like, what can I really do? Well, if these things align and I can kick your head off, and especially if I'm trading a light or a medium for a heavy or an assault mech, what do we really have to lose from that perspective? So I see death from above as something that's opportunistic, where you're engaged, you've taken some damage, you can't necessarily withdraw. I prefer to withdraw if possible, not only for the narrative, but also to save the initiative point. But if you're like, look, I've got nowhere to go, but I can power up death from above, at that point, I feel it becomes a very, very valid tactica. Okay, I'm going to switch it over to you. Well, Fritz, we want numbers. Look, maybe non-clans, maybe 3 out of every 10 games. Death from above, I'll do it at some point, just because either the tabletop glory or especially if it's city fight, city tech, where there's a lot of opportunities, I'll kind of go for it from that perspective. So 3 out of 10 games, is that a lot? So I'm going to turn it over to you guys just out of curiosity. When is the last time you did a death from above? Did it work? And out of curiosity, what mech were you piloting and what mech were you hitting?